Welcome to this short presentation designed to help you better support your children with their home learning. It consists of some general advice and guidance around meeting the challenges of home learning as a parent or as a guardian. Greenshaw Research School is one of 32 research schools and 7 associate research schools across the Research Schools network. Each school receives funding from the Education Endowment Foundation to help it with one of its 3 missions, and that is to mobilise the use of research evidence in schools to improve the outcomes of students, particularly for the most disadvantaged. Accompanying this session is a short booklet produced by Greenshaw Research School, incorporating resources produced by the EEF. It contains useful advice and guidance on how to support your children with their home learning. The guidance is intended to be practical and easy to implement, and much of it will be common sense and familiar to you, but sometimes we forget these things in difficult and trying circumstances, such as now. And these really are extraordinary times, and everything you can do then to support and encourage your children to continue their studies will be making a difference. Be reassured that no one has all the answers and no one is getting everything right all of the time. We are doing what we can. The first thing to share is a toolkit of strategies that research tells us is more likely to increase your child's ability and motivation to study. Perhaps the most important thing you can do is to establish and maintain a consistent routine for the home learning. In order to do this, you will need to know what work is being provided for your child and how to access. Where possible, you should look to any daily schedule set, and this may well not be possible, and this is fine. Many of you are balancing limited access to electronic devices and the demands of your own work and home commitments too. We get this, which is why we say that if you need to adapt the schedule, then do so. But what would really help your children is if you could try to keep this adapted schedule consistent each day. After all, we all benefit from having a clear structure that we can follow with regular opportunities for exercise and some downtime. Maintaining motivation is also very important, particularly as the weeks tick by. You can do this by taking as much interest in their work as you can, asking them questions and taking a look as they learn. Praising them for the effort they put into their work is just as important as the quality, and celebrating really good pieces with friends and family will boost their morale, as will building in small rewards for the completion of maybe some more challenging tasks. Managing well-being, theirs and ours, is obviously very important too. Just listening to their concerns and reassuring them will help, as will encouraging them to talk regularly with friends and family and doing things that are away from screens and maybe a little bit different, such as painting, baking or writing stories. If your child is anxious, maybe limit your family's exposure to news coverage of the epidemic. Keeping up their reading and writing is relatively low maintenance and really high reward in terms of continued learning. And this means making sure children are and complete any daily writing task and read as much as possible. When they do read, use the TRUST framework to support that reading. More of that in a bit. Listen to their final pieces and ask them to explain any choices that they made along the way. Research tells us that parents and carers' time is much more impactful supporting children to complete their work rather than attempting to do it themselves. You can support children by making sure they have all the information required for any given task, and then they make use of any supportive resources. This might be some examples, some prompts provided by the teacher. Reviewing work before submission is also a very good habit to foster in your children, will continue when they get back to school. The next session offers more specific guidance on how to support reading, writing and maths learning. As mentioned previously, the TRUST framework put together by the EEF is a great yet very simple set of prompts to help you motivate your children to read more widely and deeply. When you have the time, take turns predicting what will happen next in a story or recap what has already happened before reading again, always encouraging them with praise and affirmation. Sometimes you might be able to relate the characters and events they're reading about to your own life experience. Children love making connections between what they read about and the world around them. So just tuning in and listening taps into their natural curiosity and motivates them to want to read more. Obviously, you are not expected to be experts in different subjects and be able to offer detailed support to children with the different writing tasks that they've been asked to undertake. Where you can help is to reinforce the idea that writing is a process of planning, writing, and reviewing. Planning helps children to make sure they include all the important details and to sequence them into a logical order. When they write, children should aim to follow the phrasing and sentence structure of any text examples that have been offered. This isn't copying, it's learning how to write like a historian, a geographer, or a scientist. Likewise, when they finish writing, children should be encouraged to review their work, looking back at any success criteria and checking for the accuracy of both content and style. Mathematics can sometimes be a source of frustration for parents when supporting children at home with their learning, but you should bear in mind that the way you talk and frame learning maths could have an impact on how your child sees their own maths learning, possibly passing on your own anxieties to your children. So praising efforts for students' efforts is important, as well as encouraging them to take their time and persevere with their learning. Reading in math is very different to other subjects. It requires constant rereading, identifying all the different steps involved and holding on to a lot of information at once. Helping children to see these different steps is therefore hugely important. Children will not always be able to complete their tasks, particularly without the support of their teacher in the lesson. So sometimes it might be better just to go over some previous material, whether from a past lesson or a past unit. This really is not wasted time, as it helps to consolidate skills and build confidence. Likewise, practicing underlying skills is really important, which is why it's always a good thing to do to try and practice your times table, such as your 8 and 9 times table. If you do that, that helps to be the bedrock for future success and more complicated problems later on down the line. What follows is advice in relation to some of the more typical challenges that parents and carers experience when supporting home learning. First one, my child always rushes their work and doesn't do it properly. Well, try to encourage your child to see that it's much better to learn fewer things well rather than lots of things superficially. Again, this is where a daily schedule helps to balance work and social time. 2. My child finds some of the school work set too challenging. Inevitably, with teachers setting work remotely, some children will find the work more challenging than others. So going back over previous lessons, asking for help from the teacher if it's available, or focusing on what can be done right now is the most important thing. 3. My child gets anxious about the presentation of their work. Teachers are more interested in how well children are learning rather than the neatness of their work. There is a place for the presentation of work, but this probably isn't the time. Children will make mistakes, and you should reassure them it's okay to cross things out and to change them. It really doesn't matter. In fact, it's a sign of learning. 4. My child finds it hard to sustain focus for long periods of time. Sustaining focus is hard, so it's a good idea to remove all distractions from children whilst they're studying, such as mobile phones, and maybe build in some times for playing games and using social media at break. 5. My child lacks the motivation to complete any work at the moment. Completing easier, more predictable tasks, such as using any online learning platforms or simply reading a book, might be something that leads to more substantial learning later on. There will be days when children are more motivated than others. They're just like us. So praise and encouragement and contact with a form tutor and the school will also help to make a big difference. There is a great deal of help and resource and support available for families from lots of different organisations and charities. The forthcoming guidance has been aimed at everyone, but there will be a range of more specialist advice and guidance that these resources probably don't address. So here is just a selection of some of the resources available for mental health and well-being, children with special educational needs and disabilities, as well as one or two suggestions for additional options for creativity and culture, which for some children might be help to alleviate some of their boredom and open up different avenues to their minds at this stage. Hopefully you found this presentation very helpful. Please refer to the accompanying booklet that goes with this presentation.